rushed to the hospital. Well, if I had to take one guess at this, it would be that maybe Meghan and Doria cooked up a little something on the stove along with those bath salts and maybe left it for Harry.
I think that they have encouraged him. I mean, Doria is a pothead, as all of the Markles have confirmed to all of us. And Doria also used to smoke crack when she was pregnant with Meghan. So, I mean, there's also a possibility that Meghan actually never came out of the womb totally intact.
Lady Colin Campbell, what do you think is going on with Prince Harry? Because there's been a whole load of speculation this week from P. Diner, from Paul, from Thomas Markle Jr., and we'll come to all of that. But fundamentally, do you think this is a man who is not well?
Undoubtedly, he's ill. He's very disturbed. He's been disturbed for a long time. He has huge problems. I'm not sure that Harry wasn't born with problems, because Diana had bulimia, serious bulimia, while she was pregnant with him. And when you look back on Harry from the time he was a little boy, I think there's something was always slightly awry. So I think I have a certain amount of compassion for him. And I'm not trying to excuse his bad behavior. I'm trying to put it in the context of the fact that this is somebody who is disturbed, always was disturbed, was always very vulnerable to being abused by opportunists, and simply ended up finding himself in the wasp's nest, being stung left, right, and center by a certain wasp called Meghan Markle. And I think that she has enabled him in the worst way to be in touch with what the Freudians would call his id, in other words, the dark, unconscious side of his personality, instead of his ego or superego, which would be his facade and his conscience. She has overridden his conscience. She has liberated him from any of our world's sort of expectations and boundaries, and she has encouraged him to indulge in the more destructive aspects of his personality, some of which I think, in fairness to him, are beyond his control and which he is not really responsible for.
Prince Harry's recent public appearances have reignited concern about what many observers describe as a troubling personal decline. Alongside that concern, a wave of extreme accusations has surfaced online involving Meghan Markle and her mother, Doria Ragland. These claims, which include allegations of drug use, have circulated widely on social media and commentary forums. There is no verified evidence to support them. Still, their spread reflects how sharply public discourse around the Sussexes has deteriorated. What stands out is how often these accusations are being used to explain Prince Harry's current state. Commentators point to his appearance, his demeanor, and a series of controversial decisions as signs that something is wrong.
But he is responsible for how he deals with them. And so I'm not letting him off the hook. But I think he is a deeply disturbed person. You only need to look at him to see that this is a very unhappy human being who is, I mean, if you know anything about personality problems, it's written all over him that the guy is a mess. Let's leave it at that, a total mess. And so it doesn't surprise me that every now and then there is going to be an occurrence of something. I know that I said it in my first version of the first edition of my book, Meghan and Harry, the Real Story, that the royal family was very concerned that Meghan could encourage Harry on a path which would lead to his destruction, and that destruction could be triggered by her encouragement of him and his seeking a way out of a situation that had become untenable. And I don't, I actually think that we are seeing elements of this unfolding before our very eyes. I think the whole thing is deeply chilling. The only thing that makes it less chilling than it would have been 5 or 6 years ago is the fact that he has behaved so appalling that even people who wish him well no longer have the sympathy for him that they used to have. But that doesn't mean anybody wishes him ill. They simply no longer care that the outcome is going to be possibly as negative as it might end up being.
Yeah, it's really interesting, Lady C, because Thomas Markle Jr. commented on all of this, and he isn't just pinning the blame a lot on Meghan, but also Doria Ragland too. Let's watch what he had to say, and then I'll get your reaction off the back.
Prince Harry has previously spoken openly about his own past drug use, including in interviews and in his memoir. That openness has become a focal point for critics, who now link those admissions to speculation about his present circumstances and the people around him. Some argue that Harry's isolation from his family, combined with ongoing media conflict and legal battles, has contributed to visible strain. They describe a man who appears emotionally worn down and disconnected from the stability he once had. Others strongly reject the narrative that Meghan Markle or Doria Ragland are responsible for Harry's condition. They argue that assigning blame to others removes Harry's agency and turns complex personal issues into conspiracy-driven accusations.
So apparently Harry was found unconscious by his well-known longtime personal friend bodyguard, unconscious, and apparently overdoing something. Yeah, and he had to be rushed to the hospital. Well, if I had to take one guess at this, it would be that maybe Meghan and Doria cooked up a little something on the stove along with those bath salts, and maybe left it for Harry. Maybe Harry's no use to Meghan anymore. Maybe the divorce rumors are actually true. Maybe there's no money in the settlement for the divorce. Wow. Let's make a new Netflix series and story out of Harry's demise. Ooh. First of all, the day that she takes his claws out of Harry's back is the day hell freezes over.
Is he being unfair on Meghan and Doria Ragland?
No, I don't think so. I think neither of them has, in going off what we have seen enacted in our eyes before our eyes for the last several years, I don't think either of them has what I would regard as a responsible attitude towards Harry. I think that they have encouraged him. I mean, Doria is a pothead, as all of the Markles have confirmed to all of us. And Doria also used to smoke crack when she was pregnant with Meghan. So, I mean, there's also a possibility that Meghan actually never came out of the womb totally intact either. But I think that I have no doubt that Meghan would regard it as a wonderful, wonderful opportunity to star in the France Léhar operetta, The Merry Widow. I think she would show us how well she can sing and how wonderfully black suits her. And and I need to say this for legal reasons, I'm not saying that she would necessarily set out to create that scenario, but I think that she is a crass opportunist and she would take absolute advantage of it. And that would be a role that she would play significantly well, because let's remember, if they get divorced, Meghan is not going to get any vast fortune. On the other hand, if Meghan's a widow, she gets everything that Harry has that is not tied up.
Oh, God.
So let's remember that.
Oh,
And also, whatever the children inherited, she would have absolute control over it, unless they had very good, shall we say, estate planning up front. She would have absolute control until the children achieved their majority. So
wow.
it would be a case of the Gloria Vanderbilt senior and junior situation enacted all over the world. And a century ago, in 1934, I think it was, the Gloria Vanderbilt case was one of the hugest scandals of the day. And I have an awful feeling that Meghan would take full advantage of any, shall we say, sacks of gold that dropped at her feet. And she loves black. Black suits her.
Gosh, it's so dark. It's so dark. But of course, these are things that lots of people close to Prince Harry have worried about for years. And something that I found fascinating this week, Lady C, is that Us Weekly, which has under its new editorship of Dan Wakeford, who was previously at People magazine, desperately tried to curry favour and be on the side of Harry and Meghan rather than the royal family. In this cover story comparing Harry and William, he could barely find a good word to say about Harry. He even conceded that 5 years after Brexit, Harry doesn't have any sort of real role or real purpose. And these are meant to be Harry's allies. So I think what's becoming very, very clear is that there's almost agreement, Lady C, even from supporters of the Sussexes, that Prince Harry is not in a good place. And those recent videos, Lady C, of him, he made one for the German military and he gave that speech for Travelist in China. I mean, honestly, watching him, it was like he wasn't there. He was just going through the motions. It's like he knows he's defeated.
But he is defeated. He is defeated. I mean, he married her for love. He married her believing she loved him. She has enabled him in the worst possible way. She has severed his ties with everybody who was of any consequence to him. She has isolated him. She has used him. And she has misused him. She has misused every bit of advantage that she had to his detriment. You know, you do not have somebody who's disturbed and troubled, and you allow them, if you love them, to indulge in practices that are going to be destructive. Nor do you encourage them to attack those who support him and who would, I'm really referring to his family, and cushioned him against the reality of it. And Harry and Meghan seem to have thought that because he was the spare, that this was an awful situation. And because she couldn't get him to best William and Catherine and supplant them and effectively take over and become the number ones, that she was going to move them to California, where they would become an approximation of number one, and they would be acknowledged in the rest of the world as if they were number ones. Well, they're not even acknowledged now as being number sevens, because, you know, they trail after many of the minor reality people. Look at who she gets on her podcasts. She doesn't get Beyonce. She gets Beyonce's mother. You know, I mean, give me a break. I mean, where's that in the...
What is clear is that Prince Harry looks different from earlier years. He appears more tense, more guarded, and less assured. Whether this reflects emotional exhaustion, regret, or the toll of sustained public conflict remains open to interpretation. In the absence of clear explanations, speculation has filled the gap. Online narratives have grown more extreme, moving far beyond available facts and into rumor. This pattern is common when public trust erodes. One's credibility is questioned. Even unsupported claims can gain traction, especially when reinforced by repeated exposure online.
Totally. And isn't it so fascinating seeing these sort of woke legacy media organizations that we know are dying anyway, that were so determined to be on the side of Harry and Meghan, you know, because it was a very anti-British thing, anti-colonial thing, anti-royal family thing. But they can't deny where the public is at. They simply cannot deny it. And in the other example, and by the way, this is a media organization that is far from collapse. It's one of the few media organizations in the world which is actually thriving. Netflix, which up until now has been doggedly loyal to Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. Now, we have exact theories, don't we, about why, and a lot of it involves Ted Sarandos and the fact that he's in this mixed race marriage and Meghan's really cashed in on that. But Lady C, this week, even Netflix saying, sorry, we can't stay loyal to you. We can't ignore the impact of the royal family, announcing the fact that King Charles and Idris Elba are teaming up for an exclusive Netflix documentary marking 50 years of the King's trust. Now, again, this is a mortifying development for Harry and Meghan. Of course, some people, ADC, saying it's also very magnanimous of King Charles to do something with Netflix, given the way Netflix very unfairly portrayed him in The Crown. But I think for him, this is such a victory, isn't it?
I think King Charles, Charles is very pragmatic, as indeed are all reigning royals. And, the old world people who have survived have had to survive by being very pragmatic and realistic. And the late Queen was wonderfully pragmatic and very sophisticated. I have had some reservations about the present king being as sophisticated as his mother, but this squeeze is wonderful. It shows that he is becoming as sophisticated as his mother was. Netflix is a huge entertainment entity, and Netflix is ultimately going to play off both sides against the center, but the prevailing star, the heavy hitters are the ones who will ultimately win, which is going to be the monarchy. It's not going to be Meghan and Harry. And I think that Charles has done the absolutely right thing. And I mean, I've seen him do other stuff like this, but his mother was very adept at this sort of thing. And so I think it's a very positive sign, because Netflix is a huge streamer, and, he wants to reach people. And let's remember who he's doing it with. Idris Elba, who's made it absolutely clear that this is a Black man who owes a lot of his career to the Prince's trust, to the opportunity Charles gave him. And we have a government that is so woke that it can't help any Brits. It can only help people who are illegally in this country. And we have, and then now what do we have? We have a monarchy that actually is protecting the people. And I think the whole thing is a wonderful message. And I'm delighted that it's happened. But it also shows that ultimately, Meghan and Harry's day has really passed. Oh, there might be the divorce series. There might, but if they get divorced, there might be the divorce series. But that's never going to have the impact that anything to do with the monarchy will have, because people like the monarchy. I mean, whether you are pro-monarchist or not, the monarchy is a force for good, and it's proven to be a force for positive change. which is not anything we can say about either the Labour or the previous Conservative governments.
And Lady C, do you think Ted Sarandos is at all regretting how all in he's gone with Meghan?
Well, I am told that there has been quite a boardroom struggle, and he's really at this stage. He threw in his hand with Meghan, and he needs to extricate himself in such a way that Meghan and Harry's failure doesn't result in him losing his joint CEO status. Doubtless, he is very aware of the fact that he's having to fight his corner, and they are trying to spin things in such a way that it looks as if it's going to be a success for both him and Meghan, which there are people on the board who know the whole thing has been an unmitigated disaster. The only thing that was ever positive about it was the first series, the Meghan and Harry betrayal of their family, etc. Yeah, but since then, everything has been a dud, and everything will continue to be a dud. And so I think he's evidently, he's fighting for his executive survival as well as, so I suspect on some level he must have some regrets. And the fact that he's married to a woman of color, Meghan is infinitely more pale-skinned than his wife. I mean, that sort of thing plays well when everything is successful. But as soon as our failure enters the room, all of that rubbish goes flying out of the window.
Yeah, it really does. It really does.
The accusations themselves may say less about the people they target and more about the climate surrounding this story. Public frustration, polarized opinion, and unresolved questions have created space for increasingly irresponsible commentary. Prince Harry's situation is complex and unresolved. His visible decline cannot be explained by unverified allegations or online speculation. For now, what remains is concern, debate, and a conversation that continues to drift further from evidence and closer to rumor.